It's a real pleasure to welcome our guest today, Hubert Joly, who has a very impressive and diverse career path and who embodies purposeful leadership. Hubert, I will just present you very quickly. Welcome.
Good to see you, Nadia, and I so look forward to our conversation.
Thank you. I'm very happy to have you today. So Hubert, you are a senior lecturer at the Harvard Business School on topics that relate to the enactment of purpose. You have just published a new book, The Heart of Business, Leadership Principle for the Next Era of Capitalism, where you defend the idea that, I quote you, purpose and human connection constitute the very heart of business. You also hold different board positions with J&J, Ralph Lauren. You are the former chairman and chief executive officer of Best Buy, a consumer electronics retailer with 125,000 employees, more than $40 billion revenue. In even more, sorry for that, and 50, 55?
50, now we're past 50, so that's cool.
And you actually embarked, and we're going to be discussing about that, but you embarked actually on a journey to enrich customers' lives through tech with Best Buy. And before that, you occupied different senior positions, president and CEO within Carlson, a family-owned travel management company. You also had senior positions within EDS, Electronic Data Systems, acquired by Hewlett-Packard in 2008, within Vivendi, a large media conglomerate, and you were a partner at McKinsey and Company. One thing we have in common.
Nothing wrong with that.
So nothing wrong with that. So thank you very much again. Maybe my first, so when I look at the subtitle of your newly released book, The Heart of Business, which is the leadership principle for the next era of capitalism, obviously it makes me think of EOM's purpose to complete capitalism somehow. And when you look at the 2020 Edelman survey, about 60% of people say that capitalism as it exists today does more harm than good in the world. Though we also recognize that it's been very helpful in lifting lots of people out of poverty, in improving our standards of living and so on. But obviously now leaders play a critical role in that journey towards a fairer and more responsible capitalism. So, and that's why we will be talking about really today. So let me start by asking you, what was really the turning point in your personal journey? What made you realize that actually power, prestige, glory, personal achievements are all good, but not enough, and you needed a stronger sense of purpose? And what also helped you understand that in the end, the fundamental reason for being of a company goes beyond profit?
Yeah, so thank you, Nadia. And it was several milestones, right? And in many ways, you know, my story is the story of a transformation of somebody who used to be, you know, at McKinsey, hardcore problem solver, all about performance optimization, and now to somebody who believes in human magic, right? And I can guarantee you I've not smoked anything illegal along the way. Right? The milestones, so it's been over the last 30 years. So 30 years ago, one milestone was, I remember, I was asked by two friends of mine who are monks in a religious congregation to write with them articles about the philosophy and theology of work. Why do we work as human beings? And of course, work has a mixed reputation. In fact, in French, the word work is travail, which comes from Latin tripalium, an instrument of torture. Which is, but when we did our research, read the Bible and so forth, of course, work can be seen as a curse, you know, a punishment because some dude sinned in paradise. But like Viktor Frankl, we can believe that work is part of our fulfillment as human beings, and that it's part of our quest for meaning. And I think that, by the way, our search for meaning as individuals can be the foundation for corporate purpose as well. The second milestone around the same time was with a client of mine, Jean-Marie Descarpentries. I learned so much from him. a CEO of a French company, and he told me about the 3 imperatives in business. And he said that the purpose of the company is not to make money. It's an outcome. Of course, it's an imperative. And he said in business, there's 3 imperatives. I think we would all agree with that. There's the people imperative. You need to have good teams, well-equipped, well-trained. You have a business imperative. You need to have customers who are happy with your products. And then you have a financial imperative. And of course, it's excellence on the people imperative that leads to excellence on the business imperative that leads to excellence on the financial imperative. But it's an outcome, and you should treat it like this. It's not the ultimate goal. Another milestone, I'm telling you my entire life, right? So about 20 years ago, it was an important moment. By many measures, I had been successful. I'd been a partner at McKinsey. I was on the executive team at Vivendi Universal. So to quote David Brooks, I was at the top of my first mountain, except there was nothing there. It was empty. There was no meaning. There was no joy. And so call this my midlife crisis, right? I was about 40. And so that led me to want to step back and take the time to discern, what was the meaning of my life. So I actually did the spiritual exercises of Ignatius of Loyola to try to discern my calling and then be able to apply this in the business world. And then the last milestone, I'll be very brief with it, was about 12 years ago in 2009 when I started to work with a coach, an executive coach, Marshall Goldsmith. And I've worked with an executive coach ever since because everything we're talking about has significant implications on how we lead. And the model of the leader as the superhero, that's 20th century. And so, I needed help. All of us need help. In fact, exactly 100% of the top 100 tennis players in the world have a coach. Why, don't executives have a coach? I think it's really helped me become a more attentive, a more empathetic, a more human leader to benefiting from that coaching experience.
And I really like what you described, because you described how you changed, and I know that in your book also you explain how leaders, as you just mentioned, are not born leaders, and that they are not superheroes. They also are not always right, not infallible. You mentioned actually Churchill, who was a poor student and actually suffered from a speech impediment and became, one of the greatest leaders of the 20th century. So I really like that, because I think it is also very inspiring. And so now if we go, what is a little bit to the definition of a leader and a purposeful leader? You mentioned something that I find very interesting. You said, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then somehow you are a leader. Can you tell us a bit more about what is a good leader? What is a purposeful leader?
Yeah, and that's an area where there's been enormous transformation. And then, of course, during the crisis of the last 2 years, it's accelerated. The way I was trained, I was raised last century, was with this idea of the leader as the superhero who knows everything, who is there to tell others what to do. And as you mentioned, is too often driven by power, fame, glory, or money. Today, nobody wants to follow these leaders. And the kind of leaders, so I talk about, the purposeful human leader, and with 5 B's, 5 behaviors, if you will. And the first one is as a leader, to be clear about your own purpose, right? And then be curious about the purpose of people around you and how that their purpose can connect with their work and the purpose of the company. Maybe we'll dig into this, but that's a first building block. The second building block is to be clear about your role as a leader. It's not to have all of the answers. It's not, even though, you and I worked at McKinsey, we're trained to be problem solvers. This is not what people want, right? Our job as a leader is to create the environment for others to be successful, where that human magic can be unleashed. The third thing is to be clear about who you serve as a leader. I told all of the officers at Best Buy, if you're here to serve yourself or your boss or me as the CEO of the company, I don't have a problem with that. It's actually fine, except you cannot work here. We're going to promote you to being a customer. And as a customer of Best Buy, we're going to take good care of you. On the other hand, if you're here to serve the frontliners, then we're good. And of course, it's being, values-driven. Integrity is foundational. And then it's being authentic. And one of the things that I've learned, it took me a long time, is that I was confusing performance and perfection, right? No, it's okay to say, I don't know, especially in this world where, did you have a manual for COVID or a manual for back to the office? Of course not. And so to be able to be vulnerable and ask for help, my name is Hubert, I need help. That's how we build connection. That's how we can work together and figure it out together. And so, qualities like vulnerability, empathy, empathetic listening is absolutely, these are words that we were not using, just a few years ago in the business world. And the thing is that this is really hard to change, because to become a human leader, we need to connect with our emotions and the emotions of others. That's scary. And so that's a huge challenge for many leaders today, to not only be great business leaders, but to become great human leaders.
Yeah, and as you said, it's especially this part of connecting with your emotions is very hard, because we don't learn that nowhere. And actually we learn the opposite, probably, if we learn anything. And it's interesting because, Hubert, there was this Egon Zehnder 2021 CEO study that actually says that the CEO's most common issue, according to their teams, was their capacity to relate to others effectively and authentically. And I'm sure that embeds, the empathy, the vulnerability, and the emotions.
Yeah, and the big mistake I made for many, many years, you see a lot of scars on my face, right? It's all of the mistakes I've made.
I don't.
I had my head cut off from the rest of my body for too many years. And in particular, each country has a different culture. Certainly in France, where I grew up, I may have grown up in France as well.
Yes.
We were trained to never talk about anything private, right? And I think that as leaders today, we need to learn to lead with all of our body parts, right? Not just our brain, but also our heart, our soul, our guts, our ears, our eyes. And that's a journey. That's where, all of us need help. And frankly, during the COVID crisis, we've seen so many beautiful examples of people really discovering, it was not difficult, that the people we work with are human beings, right? When we connect with people in Zoom, we see their family, their kids, their dogs, their cats, their Wi-Fi problem, or our frontliners, we see their challenges. And so these are people in our care, right? And the word care, of course, comes from heart. It's the same word. And so that's a completely different, so I think this is a revolution. And what inspires me is that, why it's hard, so many CEOs and leaders today are on this journey and realize that business, is not just about profit. It's about, you can do well by doing good. You can be a force for good. And it's obvious. Best Buy is headquartered in Minneapolis, okay? After the murder of George Floyd, when the city's on fire, you cannot open your stores. You cannot run a business. And similarly, to quote Rebecca Anderson, if the planet is on fire, you don't have a business.
It's interrelated. All is interrelated.
We need a declaration of interdependence.
Exactly. No, exactly. I like that. And I would love for you to also tell the story of Best Buy, because I think it's a great example of your purposeful leadership. Because when you took over Best Buy, things were not great. I mean, the company was basically on the verge of bankruptcy. And within a few years, you were able to successfully turn around the company. And I understand that connecting what drives people to the organization's purpose was key to unleash collective human magic and to drive the success that you've had. So how did you manage the transformation and embark people together with you?
Yeah, and because these principles are not just good for when the times are good, they're also very applicable when the times are tough. And you're right, in 2012, everybody thought Best Buy was going to die, right? There was zero buy recommendation on the stock. The share price was 11, and today it's around $110. So times 10 in 9 years, it's maybe you could have done better. I don't know, Nadia, but it's not
I
bad.
wish I had, but
And the story of Best Buy, of course, we could talk about what we did. We decided prices would be competitive. We invested in online. We did a bunch of operational and strategic things. But the thread was putting people at the center in pursuit of something good. So it began at the beginning. All of the analysts were telling me, Nadia, cut, right? Close stores, cut headcounts. Like if people were the problem. My God, that's crazy. All of our stores were profitable. So why would you like me to close stores? Makes no sense. And so we started by listening to the frontliners, right? People are the source. I spent my first week on the job working in a store in St. Cloud, Minnesota. I think they should say St. Louis, but over there in Minnesota, this is St. Cloud. And just listening and watching and learning from the frontliners. My job was easy. It was do what they had said we should do. It was to focus on growth, right? Because life is about growth. Now, of course, we also cut costs, notably non-salary expenses, but it was, you don't start by headcount reduction. You do it as a last resort. And then it was all about creating energy, right? In physics, we learned that energy is a finite quantity. You cannot create energy. Well, in a human organization, you can, and it's by co-creating the plan. It's by getting going, celebrating the early wins, the green shoots. If something is not working, you say it. Oh, this one didn't quite work out as intended. We need to rework it. And so that created the momentum and then the confidence, and we rebuilt the trust internally and with the investors. That was the turnaround phase, Renew Blue, we called it, with the color of the blue shirts of the Best Buy associates. And then in the second phase, which was much more strategic, which we called Building the New Blue, this is when we redefined who we were, right? So we're not a consumer electronics retailer. We're a company that's in the business of enriching lives through technology by addressing key human needs. And so we define our purpose. And the beauty of that is that it vastly expands the addressable market and it's more inspiring. But of course, the challenge is that in many companies, people define their purpose. It's on the website, they communicate it. Aren't you excited about our new purpose? And it does nothing. So you have to put it to work. You have to make it happen, make it come to life. So how do you do this? By making the purpose the cornerstone of the strategy. So we had a number of very specific and concrete strategic initiatives. But then at the end of the day, it's about having everybody write themselves into that story. And the way you do this, Nadia, is not by, imagine for a second that you and I walk into a Best Buy store and we say to the general manager and the team that very exciting, we have a new purpose. It's to enrich lives through technology, right? They're going to say, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you just said, right? And so we work to, really connect what drives people throughout the company, which for the most part, it's the golden rule, right? It's to do something good to other people. And so we said, what we're going to try to do, and we did some workshops and, it was very human. We said, we're going to try to relate to each other and with the customers as human beings and as if we were an inspiring friend to them. Everybody can relate to that. And then, and that's an entire discussion, but we worked on creating the environment, because we can all go to a training, right? But if the environment is poisonous, nothing happens. And so in the book, I talk about the 5 ingredients to create that human magic. It's about connecting dreams. It's about, creating an environment where there's genuine human connections, where people can be themselves, can be seen, right? It's about creating an environment where there's autonomy within a framework of purpose and principles. I can be the best version of myself and have autonomy. It's about personal development and growth, one individual at a time. It's not about mass. And then creating a safe environment. And so that's the work. And what's exciting today, Nadia, is that, and probably with the members of the program, most companies want to go into that direction. They know that's what they want to do. It's the right thing to do. And what's hard is to actually do it. And that's why you do your program. That's why you do this, something similar at HBS, where I wrote the book. And because we're at the beginning of this journey. So I think it's an exciting time. It's also a demanding time, because I think, we have a few ticking time bombs in the world. So if we don't act, I don't like the world for my three beautiful granddaughters, right? So we need to do something.
Yeah, and I agree. I think most companies want to do it, as you said, and I think most people also want this to happen, because and because they are looking for purpose. They are looking for meaningful work. They are looking for purpose at work. So I really like the idea of connecting the organizational purpose with what drives people to help them find that meaningful work that they are looking after. And so I also imagine, Hubert, that during that transformation period, you had to surround yourself with key people. And I just want to quote again Egon Zander 2021 CEO study, who says that CEOs are actually struggling to build cohesion with their executive teams and boards. Just 44% of CEOs said that they were fully aligned with their teams, and even fewer said they were aligned with their boards. So my question is really, what did you do within Best Buy that proved helpful in the journey to create that cohesion?
So in a way, maybe the most important decision we make as leaders is, who do we put in positions of power, right? Because there's very little as leaders that we actually do. Pretty much everything is done by others. And so, and I've learned a lot from that standpoint. First thing was to evolve my criteria for recruiting and promoting. I used to put a lot of emphasis on experience and expertise. Now I place a lot more emphasis on, who is this person? What drives them? Sometimes I ask people, and we do this in the new CEO program at Harvard, write your retirement speech. My beautiful wife, Hortense, who's an executive coach, she asked her clients to write down their eulogy. What would you like people to say on that day when you're not going to be here to listen? Right? So that's and so that's how you have to factor this in when you recruit. The other thing that we did, and that proved to be, I think, a wonderful turning point in our journey at Best Buy. We were working on our strategy, our purpose, and so forth. And during one of our executive team offsite, right, everybody does this on a regular basis, I had asked every one of the executive team members to come to the offsite with a picture of themselves when they were little. So we had some really cute pictures of a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old. And then, over dinner, we spent the evening sharing with each other our life story and what drives us in life. So not about, the supply chain strategy or the e-commerce, no, a life story, including all of the quirkiness and the difficult moments, and then what drives, and then we, as a result of that, we learned two things. One, everyone on the executive team is a human being, not just a CFO or CHRO or CMO and so forth, but a beautiful, quirky, complicated, human being. And two, with a couple of exceptions, all of us were actually aligned on the idea, on the fundamental idea of doing something good to others. And as a result of that, we said, look, we're spending a lot of our life working, right? And we're the leadership team of Best Buy. Why don't we use this platform to be a force for good in the world and to create an organization that employees love, that customers love, that the community and the planet can love, and that shareholders can love. And that emotional connection, I think, is very profound. And I have an article that is going to come out shortly, I think in HBR, of a business review, Man's Search for Meaning as Foundation for Business Purpose.
Yeah.
And I think it's an exercise that anyone can do. And I think that, it is truly foundational. The other thing we did with the executive team, maybe I should have done this sooner, but we worked with some outside help on this. One question we ask ourselves, everybody on the team, what is your primary team? If you're the CFO, is it your finance team? If you're at the stores, is it your store team? Or is it the executive team? And it was a turning point where one of the team members, who later became president and CEO, said, I've just realized I need to make this executive team my primary team, because that's the opportunity to, shape the future, as opposed to being, the king of my silo. And that led us to then work on how can we work together more effectively and so forth. So building the right team is something, but architecting, orchestrating how the team thinks of themselves and how it works together, oh my God, that's so impactful.
And I really like your stories, because in the end, you're also saying that connecting, mobilizing, sharing life stories, that all helps create social capital, and social capital is key in an organization and more generally in life between people, basically.
And engagement, in fact, all of the transformation meetings now at the company start with one of the participants sharing why personally this change is meaningful to them.
Yeah. And that's how you connect the two, the individual and the organization. And so we've touched upon a little bit, the meaning of work and so on. And I think that has become maybe even more important over the last 18 months with the COVID and the global pandemic we're going through. And just the fact, a recent study shows that 7 out of 10 employees are reflecting on their purpose. And half of the Americans are reconsidering the work that they want to do. So my question is, in that very, I would say, unprecedented context, can we draw some leadership lessons that will also be important going forward?
There's so many great lessons, leadership lessons from the last 18 months and going forward. You're referring to the Great Resignation. That's what we call it in the US, right? So everybody wants to do something else. So the implication of that is that we need a big re-recruiting effort. Reconnect with the employees, understand what drives them. I had a store general manager in Boston, just amazing guy, a guy in this particular case. He would ask everyone in his store, what is your dream? At Best Buy or outside of Best Buy, what is your dream? Okay, write it down in the break room. My job is to help you achieve your dream. That's the first ingredient of human magic, connecting dreams, because then you can connect that with the work. The other leadership lesson, I think, for the last 18 months is the number of curveballs, to use a baseball analogy. Anybody non-American, please forgive me. I've now become so American; it's embarrassing. There's no manual. There was no manual for COVID. There's no manual for back to the office. There's no manual for all of the societal issues that we need to deal with. And so we have to be able to say out loud, I don't know. So humility is becoming an enormous quality. Curiosity, let's find out. Let's ask people who might have a clue. The medical profession, as relates to COVID. Empathy, really understanding what the empathetic listening as relates to back to the office, genuinely listen to what's happening, and as opposed to just imposing your point of view. It's very tempting. So now it's done, although we have the Delta variant, but chop, everybody back. Let's slow down and think. And empathetic listening is really important. And then there's also, because the number of curveballs. So these societal matters, certainly in the US, CEOs are being asked to get involved in all sorts of matters, voting rights in Georgia, should you engage on these things? The community, and I think that we have to recognize that our scope has changed, in that we have to embrace these different stakeholders and feel that, in The Godfather, there's this line where, Tassio says to the consigliere, tell Michael, I actually liked him. It was only business, nothing personal. I think business is really personal.
Yes.
You have to make it very personal. And then the last thing I would say, it's about, leaders being able to think, to be change agents, right? Which has always been the case, but to reimagine the business, right? There's been so much disruption. I think for me, COVID is a bit like 66 million years ago, when planet Earth was hit by an asteroid and all of the dinosaurs died and new species came about. I think it's a bit the same. The pace of change has accelerated. And so it's not a restart, right? It's a reset. And as leaders, we need to work together with our team to reimagine what business we're in. Again, we're not a brick and mortar retailer, not a restaurant company. What are the human needs we're here to serve? Because it's reimagining the business around our purpose, which is, I think, something very, very exciting. So the expectations of leaders, oh my God, the bar has been raised very significantly, which means that one of the implications for all of the leaders in your program here is that you need to take care of yourself, physically, but also spiritually. You need to be kind with yourself, because this is hard, right? So there's a whole discussion here about, how do you build your resiliency, your wellness, and of course that of the people around you. But in order to lead others, you need to be able to start by leading yourself.
And that means also accept your own vulnerabilities.
And say, my most frequently used phrase now, Nadia, is, my name is Hubert, and I need help. With my students, that's what I told them. I'm new at this, so I'm going to try my best. I'm committed to being the best professor I can, but you guys are going to need to help me. So if you see me do things that don't work so well, you tell me, I'll work on them, And so we work together and we make it a great experience. That starts by being able to say, my name is Hubert, I need help.
So talking again about you, Hubert, if you, talking about your legacy, and that's also something you talk about in the book, and you mentioned Hortense and the idea of asking people to write their eulogy. I have a question about what is it that you would like to be remembered for, and what are the leaders that you find yourself most inspiring?
Well, the first question, it's easy because it's completely tied to my purpose in life. And the way I've crafted my purpose is to say, I want to try my best to make a positive difference on people around me. Mm-hmm. So it starts with people I interact with every day. And then use the platform I have to try to make a positive difference in the world. So when I was CEO of Best Buy, of course, we were using Best Buy as a force for good in the world. And hopefully, we did some good to a bunch of constituencies. And now that I'm not a CEO anymore, which, I'm very content with, it's about using what I've learned to add my voice and my energy, like you're doing, to contribute to this urgent and necessary foundation of business and capitalism around purpose and humanity. And so that's my passion. So that's why I wrote the book. That's why I'm teaching at Harvard, and we have a program we're piloting called Putting Purpose to Work and Unleashing Human Magic, which is really cool. That's why I'm coaching and mentoring a number of CEOs. It's all aligned with that idea of using the platform I have to try to make a positive difference in the world.
And I know you said a sentence that I find quite powerful. Back in the 1940, Winston Churchill spoke about Britain's finest hour. This crisis can be our finest hour as leaders, but it requires that we ask ourselves a few questions. So do you think we are asking ourselves the right questions? And do you think we are responding fast enough? Are you optimistic overall?
I love this quote from this reference to Churchill. And another one I love is life, it's something like, life is about going from one catastrophe to the next one without loss of enthusiasm. And so my view is that, no, we're not moving fast enough. We have a few, we know this, a few ticking time bombs, which, whether it's the planet, society, racial inequity, geopolitical, we have these ticking time bombs. And I think we're not moving fast enough. We need to bend the curve. So in last year, so why I'm the eternal optimist, last year, I had to say it out loud. The world we live in is not working. We have all of these crises. What's the definition of madness? Doing the same thing and hoping for a different outcome. It's not going to work. And so there's this urgent need. And I think that there's a growing movement, but chop, chop, chop. We need to we need to move faster in that direction. That's why I'm so eager to help management teams that are moving in that direction. My view is that with the next generation and with commitment, I think that is emerging, there's a lot we can do, but there's not much time to lose here.
Yeah, it's a bit paradoxical because it looks like with challenges comes also a window of opportunities, right. And we have that window of opportunities.
So I'm in a sense, I'm concerned about the situation. I'm also determined, and I'm so energized.
I can see that.
I need to work. Do I need to work on more and being more enthusiastic about? Okay, I'm good. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hubert. Look, it's always a great pleasure to listen to you, and and I look forward to the next discussion. And thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you, Nadia, and everybody. And enjoy the program. And I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of commitments and change comes out of your program. That's very cool what you guys are doing. So thank you, Nadia.
Thank you so much. Thanks again.